Welcome to the Better Business, Better Life podcast. Terry DuPont is the founder of DuPont Advisory Group, a group dedicated to providing comprehensive services to successful business owners, medical, and other professionals. Terry has top-of-the-table status in the prestigious International $1 Million Roundtable, placing him among the top 0.1% of all professional financial advisors in the world. Terry's philosophy is, I've learned that I grow and prosper more by focusing on the success of others, rather than fretting over my own. Terry is a certified financial professional with the Institute of Financial Wellness, an advisor for the Power of Zero Taxes in Retirement, chartered retirement plans specialist, certified wealth preservation planner, and certified philanthropic developer. On the podcast, Terry brings together experts in their field who have succeeded in building their business to share their secrets with you. And now, here's your host, Terry DuPont.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Better Business, Better Life, Building on Your Success. Today, we're honored and privileged to have Scott Frick, CPA, as our guest. Scott is a successful CPA here in Northern Indiana. He's in Kendallville, Indiana. So, Scott, we want to welcome you to the podcast, and we're glad you're here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Glad to have you. Scott, to start with, can you tell us about yourself and what got you started in the accounting industry and becoming a CPA, a successful CPA?
Growing up, I could remember there was something interesting to me about people that did things well. And my father's a golfer. He's 81. He shoots his age quite a bit, especially when he plays against me. He's always in a slump, and then he plays me, and he's healed all of a sudden. But so I would try to emulate golfers' swings, and he said I could do it. Okay. I'm a fan of the Beatles, and it's the greatest rock band, but it's not. I've been a fan of them since as early as I can remember. I'm an Indiana grad, so I was in Bloomington during, I think, Coach Knight's, maybe as his prime or as he's starting his prime. But I was a fan of his from the time I could turn the television on. It seemed like there was something intangible. So my dad asked me in 8th grade what I wanted to do. I said, I said, I read something about some kind of an accountant. They make a lot of money. That sounds good to me. Oh, well, I know a gentleman here in town that does that. That was where it ended. I took a couple bookkeeping classes, really liked it. Went to college, found it was one of the few things I could do well. But there was something about that talent draw. And as I got to finishing college and got ready for job interviews, this was my perception. And so I don't want to offend anybody that's not in public practice. But those CPAs and the firms that came to Bloomington to interview, those in public practice struck me as the most talented ones. As I said, it's not to be offensive to anybody that's not in that. And quite frankly, anybody that's in industry or is in the private sector or private business side, I admire what they do. I think they spin magic when they talk about budgets and forecasts, because that's stuff I don't do a lot. And I think maybe they think I can spin a little magic when the tax code comes up. But so it was something that was twofold, that I had someone I could look up to. Didn't know him, never met him till I was in my 30s, but he was this particular type of accountant, and then it was something I could do. It was really strange. For some reason, I had a skill, and I thought maybe it was math, and boy, trigonometry took that out of me. So it's add, subtract, multiply, and divide. That's kind of my limit.
Okay, well, that's good. Could you share with us maybe what was your biggest challenge along the way?
Yeah, because this proclivity to identifying talent, my grades didn't cooperate. I probably had a little too much fun in school. And my wife made me throw these away, but I had a stack this large of some of the best CPA firm stationery rejection letters in the country. So having some of those challenges of maybe being a late bloomer, just having this innate understanding that I knew I could do it. I just had to apply myself, and I hadn't really applied myself, I don't think, until I got almost through school. So not starting out at the prestigious firm or the Big Four, or back then it was the Big Eight, I started with the Board of Accounts doing governmental auditing, and really made a lateral move after about 2.5 to 3 years of that. I remember thinking to myself, if I don't get into public accounting now, I'll never get into it. And that was always my goal. So the challenge was really self-induced or apply. It was all my fault. I didn't apply myself early, and that really harmed me when it came to finding employment in what I thought I wanted to do.
Okay. By the way, I'll have to introduce you sometime to one of my best friends. He played under Bobby Knight. You probably don't know him. His name's Kent Benson.
Oh, yes. I've heard of him many times.
Yeah. Okay. If you had to put your thumb on it, what do you think helped you become as successful as you are from where you started to where you are now?
I had two unbelievable mentors. The first one was my lateral move. I went to Terry Wagner in Fort Wayne, and Terry taught me the professional skills to be a CPA. He taught me from the ground up of here's what you have to do to learn. And that was the first one. The second one was the gentleman that I ended up purchasing my practice from. He taught me how to run a business. And so I had really two aspects, both CPAs, different sides of the coin, if you will, that just unbelievable, invaluable lessons I still use today. Mr. Wagner, maybe the best advice he ever gave me is never let another accountant get their foot in the door. If you don't know how to do something, go learn it, take a class, go to a seminar, figure it out, and know your limits, but figure out how to get that and service that client. And I've heard a lot of my professional peers, well, we don't do that. So I send them down the road, and then it's not long, that client's not theirs any longer. So that was an invaluable lesson. And I learned things I never thought I'd be able to do because that was in the back of my mind is I don't want to let someone else get their foot in it.
It's funny how life forces you to do some things.
Yeah.
What would you say is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
Oh, heavens. To value what we do. When you're young, I bought my practice, the first half of it, and joined Mr. Nelson here in Kennevilles when I was about 30. So I didn't know what I didn't know. So when you're younger and you're in business and you're establishing and hustling, and quite honestly, he couldn't afford me if we didn't go out and generate business. That partnership would not have lasted. So you tend to, and I think every profession does this, you tend to do work maybe for less than what you should, just to have something to do or to build a clientele and that. And all of a sudden 20 years passes or more and you're still hustling like you're 30. So the realization just really in the last 3 to 4 years is to value what we do as CPAs, and understand that especially when you see some others work, that not everybody can do this. Supply and demand with labor has made that much, much easier because frankly, we turn some business away if it's not a good fit just because we're full. There was a time anybody that walked in the door, boy, we'd take them. So that, and I see a lot of other clients or accountants online, message boards and Twitter and things like that are starting to understand that as well. It's like, gosh, we've underpriced ourselves so long, and they're catching up. And I think that's ultimately good for the profession because it'll help allow us to hopefully fill this labor problem that we have as public accounting. Yeah.
Excellent. Is there something that you like to share with each and every client you have as far as advice or a tip or?
Yeah, it was interesting because as I was thinking about that, initially I thought, well, of course not, because we're so customized. Everybody gets their own unique conversation. And then I thought, well, that's not really accurate. Really, what if there's a word or a phrase that probably all clients get is you have to participate. I want you to participate. We do things or we don't do things for clients that other professionals do, and they'll say, gosh, don't you do this? Don't you send reminders to make their estimates? They haven't changed the estimated tax payment date in 40, 50, 60 years. These are adults. They participate. You get a client that has maybe a really good idea for a business, or they're going to buy a business, and they'll tell you, well, gosh, I'm not an accountant. Fair enough. Not all of us are. But do you understand financial statements? Do you understand your business? Do you understand cash flow? Do you understand, can you put someone in a position that you can oversee them? Can you monitor them? Can you make sure that they're not defrauding you? And if they give you this kind of swirly look of I'm not sure that I like that, or that's not what I'm here. I make parts. I make rugs. I sell retail. There's a long list of people that refuse to participate in the finances of their company that are not in business anymore. So I think participation is that message of you need to be in this. We'll be with you, but I'm not going to do it by myself. I
Excellent.
won't care more than you will.
I think that I have to agree with you. You know, in my business as well, my industry, and probably pretty much every industry, you have those clients, patients, et cetera, that always have to be babysitted. So.
And to a degree, some of that I don't mind. I'm not going to call you and remind you for things that you should know. It's amazing. People are sometimes surprised that April 15th is the filing date. And again, that hasn't changed in generations. Although with COVID, it did. But just, and I don't mind somebody that says, well, what would you do? What do you advise? That's participating because they're seeking your advice. It's when you ask the question and it's weeks on end of not answering that I get a little concerned because you're not participating.
Okay, excellent. That kind of leads me into my next question, Scott. I would guess is if you could share it, is there a first step that you take with someone looking to take a deeper dive or into in their accounting or their tax planning or whatever it is that they're asking you to do? Is our first step that you take with virtually every client?
Well, it's understanding what they want. Not everybody comes into our office for the same reason. For some, it's convenience. Others, they have no way of their business and their taxes or their accounting are so complex that they would have no idea how to do it. Some we just fit a specific need for a short period of time. For example, dad passed away, they've got a trust. What's always done my own taxes, I don't know what to do with the trust. So maybe there's a year or two, but so I think it's finding out what the goal or what their purpose of contacting you is. What do they need? And is it a lifelong advisor? Is it just a short-term thing? And I'm okay with either if it's interesting. And I think something that we're going to be viewed as efficient. In other words, if there's, let's say it's a trust or there's some sort of task that really isn't, maybe we're going to bill for it. Let's put it this way. We're going to bill for it. And I want you to think that it's valuable. You might be able to get this done elsewhere for us. So you don't need me. So I'm okay with doing short-term if it fits our skill set of what we do and that the clients can look at that and say, we got our money's worth.
Okay, excellent. You may have just answered this, but I'm going to let you expound on it a little bit if it makes sense. And would you feel that you have a unique approach in any way when it comes to helping your clients create, get their taxes done, do tax planning, whatever it is that they might come in and have as their main concern? Do you have a unique approach to that in any way?
Yes and no. It really is becoming more of a focus of what we want to do. That there are a lot of CPAs and enrolled agents in tax that are and actually doing more of this, selling a tax planning product, if you will. Mm-hmm. And for this price, you get your return in 2 consults, and we'll forecast. For this price, you get 4 consults. For a higher price, will come out to your house. And things like that. So I think it goes back to figuring out what the client needs, but we're really moving more in that direction of trying to be in touch all year long. Practice management software has improved to the point that makes it a lot easier because we get due dates and things coming up on our tasks for each staff member, and I enjoy that because again, it allows us to spread our work out a little bit because if you're and this really has taken some sales techniques here to explain to clients that an extension might be the best thing for
Mm-hmm.
it not only helps us, but as long as you're paid, who cares when you file? And in fact, I spoke with a client we just finished up this morning, spoke with him yesterday. We've got some options and some things we can do with 22. Well, he's halfway through 23 now. He
Mm-hmm.
knows pretty well what 23 is going to look like. So, do we need to do anything with 22 election wise, or maybe tweaking some things that pushes a deduction into one year or another because we have more information? If I ask him in the middle of March, he has no idea.
Right.
So I think that if we be a little more persistent and a little more in contact, making sure that the clients get their taxes paid, then and show this year after year that, hey, this works. Why do they care when they file? And then that allows me to not overburden staff so much.
Gotcha. You're really good at giving me segues into my next question. I wasn't planned that way. How do you keep your clients up to date with all the changing tax laws and trends that are going on?
That's a weak spot for us. We don't do a lot of communication throughout the year. One of the reasons we're with the practice management system is I think we're able to call email addresses by their client type. So the 1040s, the 1120s, we can sort them that way. It's interesting, but when clients participate, sometimes they see stuff on the news and they ask me. So I can't say that we're harmed. I don't send a monthly newsletter, quarterly thing, which is probably no secret, but those are subscription based, and those CPAs aren't writing those; they're buying them. But if there's something really major, I've got, honestly, you've probably got 10, 15, 20 clients that it's really going to affect. I'll call them, mail them, but a lot of times they beat me to it.
I've got some of those as well. Tell me, if you could, what's a mistake that you find many people make that's really hard to undo as it relates to your industry?
Oh, mistake that's hard to undo. Gosh, I don't know. I mean, we can undo a lot of things. Uh, I suppose. I mean, I guess occasionally, if you've got some long-lived entity types, this is maybe a little more technical than you are looking at for. But there are certain pratfalls that can occur with certain types of entities, and sometimes you're just stuck until an event happens, until a death, until maybe someone that throws stupid money at someone to buy this asset or this business or something. But for the most part, I don't know that we're necessarily locked into many things. Obviously, things that have done and filed and closed in the past, but that's why we're supposed to be a little creative. So we try to figure out how to make this not a mistake, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. I've noticed when looking at your website, Scott, that you do quite a bit for your community and encourage others to do the same. Why is that something that's so important to you?
Well, it was being the beneficiary as a younger person of receiving. I think I spoke about the mentors and things like that. So it's a chance to, that was always what the grown-ups did. Well, the grown-ups are on the whiteboard and the church council or something like that. And being in a smaller community, there's not a lot of CPAs in our town. So you're sort of looked at as your name is known. So if there's a volunteer opportunity, they're going to ask you. So I've done those more or less as a payback. Like I said, I was the beneficiary of a lot of that. I thought it was, I don't want to say required, but it certainly was helpful. And it was also those, if we go back to the beginning of our conversation, those really skilled professionals, when they talk to you about joining their firm, well, we expect you to do other things as well. We want you to be involved with the community. I understand they're looking at driving business. And that's not why I did it. It was, gosh, the talented people are doing that. I probably should be doing that as well. But over those years where you again, it's you kind of, I don't want to say you force yourself, but you kind of do. Well, you learn a lot and you make connections and you make contacts, and it just leads into other things. And I'm at the age where I've kind of done a lot of that, which is nice, but I still do I mean, I'm involved with some other things through our church and through a local bank board, which to me really fits hand in glove with how I like to service clients, because I look at our profession and myself is we're a cog to help business owners, individuals, but our clients achieve their goals. And boy, does a community bank fit into that glove as well. So I am really, it's really fun and exciting to be on that and watch these companies and these bank customers thrive because of things that the bank does in the community.
Okay. Would you, or how do you, Scott, define success in your mind?
Well, initially, it's the ability to make a better than average living, right?
Right.
But that doesn't last long.
Right.
You move past that. I think it goes back to that servicing clients. It's really fun to take a startup or someone that maybe is a little bit struggling and provide some advice, provide some help, some information, tidy some things up. It might be suggestions that allow them to get information quicker. It might be suggestions of without violating confidences, but an idea that you've learned from someone that's in a similar type industry. But it's really watching your clients succeed and knowing that you had some part in that. One of probably he's not my biggest account, but pretty close, mentioned to a colleague of his that he says, I have the best team of anybody in the area that helps him. And he's referring to myself and his attorney. And I think we do great work for him. And it was really nice to hear that he thinks we do great work for him. So that, as much as anything, to be to I guess define success is that I don't think about this benefiting me or I mean I learn things that my benefit is I learn different things about his business and again things that maybe I've never come across before. But he understands and appreciates the help that he gets. And working with an attorney that's we're in the trenches, and I think we both took that as very, very high compliments.
Excellent. Excellent. I've got a couple more questions, but before I do, is there anything you wish to share that we haven't discussed?
I don't think so. This is no. I mean, I think we're covering a lot of what we thought we would, and hopefully it's been a little interesting. It's been great on this end.
Well, then tell me, Scott, with all the success that you've had over the years, what do you feel is your biggest challenge?
Well, I think as a profession, we're really starving for talent, and I think a lot of businesses and industries are. I think that the challenge um, be able to communicate in an effective enough manner that would allow a young person to look at accounting that maybe they hadn't thought of it. We hear a lot about work-life balance, and I understand that concept, but I'm also of the generation probably that understands the 10,000-hour rule too. Uh, that being in the trenches and doing the things enhances your skill. And the work-life balance, like I said, I understand it from a concept, but I'm in a profession, maybe it's unique because of the community I live in, but I'm in a profession and in a business that I didn't miss those things like with my family growing up. In fact, I had more flexibility than many of my kids' teammates' parents because they worked in a city, 25 miles away, or they worked for an employer that wasn't going to give them time off. Coached little league, attended my kids' games and band practices and band concerts, and I didn't miss that stuff. Now I might go back to the office at 9 p.m. to finish some projects or things. So and again, it's probably my age creeping in to this, but I discount a little bit of that because I think we have flexibility that you can do both. And I really think to get good and service your clients and be successful, you need to create and develop those skills. So I think that's a challenge. I don't know how to communicate that. I've actually got an intern with me this summer, and I'm really trying to impart that you can do both. You can do it all. That's a huge challenge. As I said, labor just in general, and I think we're getting there, but maybe helping to inform the business community that what our value is. I think a lot of times the clientele or future or potential clientele looks at us as we're tax preparers. Yeah, we're a little more than that. We do that, sure, but if that's all you're looking for, you probably don't need me.
Okay, great. Before we wrap things up, Scott, can you tell our audience where they can go to learn more about you and contact you?
Well, we do have I'd call it a brochure website, scottfrickcpa.com. We're in Kendallville. It's interesting, with the advent of the internet, we don't put our telephone number in the telephone book anymore. So I think if you Google us for CPAs in Kendallville, we're up there towards the top. And I see from my Google reports, that's where most of our referrals come from. Our telephone number is 260-347-1940. And you can reach me at scott@scottfrickcpa.com. I do have a Twitter handle, and I can't for the life of me remember what it is.
That's okay. We're going to provide that information, or we have provided that information at the
Okay.
bottom of the screen for you too. So,
Yeah.
Scott, I really appreciate you joining us today. It was a great show, and I'd like to have you back again sometime. But ladies and gentlemen, this is for this week. We're Better Life, Better Business, growing on your success, and please join us again on our next episode of our show. Thanks for stopping by. Take care.
Appreciate it, Terry.
This has been the Better Business, Better Life, Building on Your Success podcast. If you have questions about creating tax-free wealth and income, forward-looking tax mitigation, strategic risk mitigation, wealth preservation and legacy planning, and advanced financial management, go to DuPontadvisory.com or email Terry@DuPontadvisory.com.